You know that feeling when you think you are finally going to have a perfect family dinner? I had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. My husband Ryan and I were celebrating his brother Marcus getting promoted to senior partner at his law firm. I bought a new dress made reservations at the Sterling Room and genuinely believed this would be the night our family bonds would strengthen. But as I sat there watching my sister-in-law Jessica smirk while pointing us toward the table near the restrooms, I had no idea how this evening would end. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Trust me, you will not believe what unfolded when the check arrived. Let me paint the picture for you. My name is Chelsea, and I am 28 years old. I work as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company here in Denver. I have worked my way up from an entry-level position over 6 years, and I am proud of what I have accomplished. Ryan and I have been married for 2 years now, and our relationship is solid. He understands my drive, supports my career, and we have built a beautiful life together in our little townhouse downtown. The complicated part of our relationship has always been his family, specifically his sister-in-law Jessica. She married Ryan's older brother Marcus 5 years ago, and from day one, she made it clear that she considered herself the queen bee of the family. Jessica comes from old money. Her father owned several car dealerships across Colorado, and she has never worked a day in her life. She graduated from an expensive private college with a degree she has never used, and she spends her days shopping, getting her nails done, and planning elaborate social events that somehow always exclude me. I have tried to connect with Jessica numerous times. I invited her to lunch, offered to help plan family gatherings, and even complimented her on things I genuinely admired. But every interaction felt like a test I was destined to fail. She would make subtle comments about my background, my clothes, or my job. During our last Christmas dinner, she actually said, "Oh, Chelsea, you work so hard. It must be exhausting, not having the luxury to focus on family." The way she said it made it sound like I was selfish for having a career. Ryan sees it too, but he has always been conflict averse when it comes to family. He grew up walking on eggshells around Marcus, who was the golden child, and that dynamic carried into adulthood. When I would tell Ryan about Jessica's comments, he would sigh and say, "She does not mean anything by it. That is just how she is." But I knew better. Jessica was deliberate in everything she did. This dinner was supposed to celebrate Marcus finally making senior partner at his prestigious law firm. It was a huge achievement, and despite my feelings about Jessica, I was genuinely happy for Marcus. He had worked hard for this promotion, and I wanted to support Ryan in celebrating his brother's success. I spent extra money on a navy blue dress with subtle beading around the neckline. It was elegant without being flashy professional, yet festive. I felt confident and beautiful when I put it on. Ryan seemed nervous as we got ready. He kept adjusting his tie and checking his phone. When I asked him what was wrong, he said, "Nothing, I just want tonight to go well." I should have pressed him for details, but I was so focused on my own optimism that I ignored the warning signs. The Sterling Room is one of Denver's most exclusive restaurants. Getting a reservation there typically requires booking months in advance, but somehow Jessica had managed to secure a table for 8 on short notice. The restaurant sits on the top floor of a historic building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The interior is all dark wood crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. It is the kind of place where business deals are made and anniversaries are celebrated. When Ryan and I arrived, we were greeted by a hostess in a crisp black suit, who led us through the dining room to where the rest of the family was gathering. Jessica had beaten us there naturally, and she was holding court near the bar in a stunning red cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Her blonde hair was perfectly curled, her makeup flawless, and she wore a diamond tennis bracelet that caught the light every time she gestured. "Oh, Chelsea," she said when she saw me looking me up and down with barely concealed assessment. "That dress is interesting, very practical." The way she said practical made it sound like an insult. Several of the other family members turned to look at me, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Marcus appeared at Jessica's side, looking uncomfortable. He had always been kind to me, but he rarely contradicted his wife in public. "Hey, Chelsea, Ryan," he said, giving us both quick hugs. "Thanks for coming tonight." Ryan's parents, David and Linda, were also there, along with Jessica's parents, Richard and Patricia. David and Linda had always been warm to me. They appreciated that I made their son happy and never made me feel like an outsider. Jessica's parents, on the other hand, had the same entitled energy as their daughter. They spoke in clipped tones about their recent trip to Europe and their new vacation home in Aspen. The hostess approached our group and announced that our table was ready. That was when Jessica stepped into full hostess mode, even though Marcus was supposed to be the guest of honor. She began directing everyone toward the dining room, assigning seats as if she were orchestrating a formal dinner party. "Richard and Patricia, you two sit at the head of the table," she announced. "David and Linda right there next to them. Marcus, you are here at my right side naturally." She continued around the table, positioning everyone with the precision of a wedding planner. Then she turned to Ryan and me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ryan, this is a family table. You can sit near the bathrooms." She gestured toward a small two-person table tucked into a corner near the restaurant's restroom entrance. "It will be much more comfortable this way." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked around at the other family members, hoping someone would speak up, but most of them avoided eye contact. A couple of Jessica's friends, who had apparently been invited to this family celebration, actually smirked. One of them whispered something to the other, and they both looked in my direction. Ryan's face went red. "Jessica, come on. We can all fit at one table." "Oh, do not be dramatic," Jessica replied with a wave of her hand. "This way, you two can have privacy, and we can focus on celebrating Marcus properly. Besides, that table has a lovely view of the facilities." The hostess looked confused by the seating arrangement, but Jessica's commanding tone left no room for argument. I felt every pair of eyes in the restaurant on us as we made our way to the isolated table. The walk felt endless, and I could hear the murmur of conversations starting up behind us. Sitting at that table near the bathrooms was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. Every few minutes, someone would walk past us on their way to the restrooms, and I would catch snippets of conversations from other diners about the unusual seating arrangement. "Why are those two sitting by themselves?" I heard one woman ask her companion. "Must be some family drama," came the response. From our corner table, I had a clear view of the family table where Jessica was presiding over the celebration like a queen. She had positioned herself so that she could see us perfectly, and I caught her glancing in our direction multiple times throughout the evening. Each time, she would say something to whoever was sitting next to her, and they would turn to look at us as well. The worst part was watching Ryan's face throughout this ordeal. He was angry, but he was also torn between standing up for me and avoiding a scene that would ruin his brother's celebration. I could see him clenching and unclenching his fists under the table, and his jaw was set in a way that told me he was fighting to keep his temper in check. "We should just leave," he whispered to me during one particularly loud burst of laughter from the family table. "No," I replied firmly. "We are not running away. Marcus worked hard for this promotion, and we are here to celebrate him." The noise level from our isolated position was almost unbearable. The restroom doors had heavy springs that caused them to slam shut every time someone used them. The sound of running water and hand dryers created a constant background hum that made conversation difficult. Meanwhile, the family table was positioned in the quietest, most elegant section of the restaurant. Our waiter, a professional young man named David, seemed genuinely confused by the arrangement. He kept looking between our table and the family table as if trying to figure out the relationship dynamics. When he approached to take our drink orders, he asked quietly, "Will you be ordering together with the other table or separately?" Separately, I told him, making the decision for both Ryan and myself. If Jessica wanted to treat us like outsiders, we would act like outsiders. As the evening progressed, Jessica's performance became more elaborate. She stood up multiple times to make toasts, and each one felt like a deliberate slight. To Marcus, who has always understood what real family loyalty means, she said during one toast, looking directly at our table, "Some people just do not understand family traditions," she announced during another loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. I watched her order bottle after bottle of expensive wine for the family table. She selected items from the premium section of the menu without even glancing at the prices. At one point, she flagged down the sommelier and asked him to recommend their finest vintage wines. I could see other family members shifting uncomfortably as the orders piled up, but no one said anything. Meanwhile, I was dealing with my own emotional storm. The hurt ran deeper than just this one evening. This was the culmination of 2 years of subtle insults, exclusions, and power plays. I thought about all the times Jessica had made snide comments about my job, my clothes, my background. I remembered the baby shower where she seated me with the teenagers, claiming it was because I was young and fun. I recalled the Christmas when she gave everyone else thoughtful, expensive gifts and handed me a generic candle from the drugstore. But something was shifting inside me as I sat there watching her performance. Instead of feeling smaller and more defeated, I was beginning to feel something else entirely. A calm, clear anger that was completely different from the hot embarrassment I had felt earlier. I excused myself to use the restroom, which was conveniently just a few steps away from our table. In the bathroom, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my assistant asking her to confirm something I had been wondering about all week. Her response came back within minutes, and it made me smile for the first time all evening. I looked at myself in the mirror, adjusted my hair, and walked back to our table with a completely different energy. When I returned, Ryan noticed the change immediately. "What happened? You look different." I signaled to our waiter and ordered a glass of their finest bourbon. "I think it is time we enjoyed this evening properly," I told Ryan. He looked confused, but did not argue. As I sipped my drink, I watched Jessica continue her show, and my smile grew wider. A text message buzzed on my phone, and when I read it, I actually laughed out loud. Ryan looked at me like I had lost my mind, but I just patted his hand and said, "Trust me, darling, tonight is going to be more interesting than any of them realize." As the dinner wound down, the family table was in high spirits. Jessica had successfully positioned herself as the center of attention throughout the entire meal, and Marcus was basking in the glow of congratulations from everyone present. The expensive wine had flowed freely, and I had watched Jessica order several premium bottles that I knew cost hundreds of dollars each. That was when our waiter approached their table with a leather portfolio that I recognized as the check presenter. Jessica looked expectantly toward Marcus, clearly anticipating that he would handle the bill as the guest of honor. But when the waiter opened the portfolio and showed Marcus the total, I watched the color drain from his face. From my position near the bathrooms, I could not hear exactly what was being said, but I could see the panic spreading around the table. Jessica leaned over to look at the bill, and her confident expression transformed into something resembling shock. She started gesturing animatedly, clearly trying to explain or justify something to Marcus. The waiter stood patiently beside their table while a heated, whispered conversation took place. I could see Jessica pointing at different items on the bill and Marcus running his hands through his hair in the way he always did when he was stressed. Other family members were leaning in, trying to see what was causing the commotion. Then Jessica looked directly at our table, and I knew exactly what was coming next. She was going to try to involve Ryan in paying this massive bill. After spending the entire evening treating us like unwelcome outsiders, she was now going to expect us to contribute to her extravagant ordering spree. Sure enough, Jessica stood up and walked over to our table, with Marcus trailing behind her, looking mortified. "Ryan," she said in a voice that was trying to sound casual but had an edge of desperation. "We seem to have a little situation with the bill. Some of the wine orders got a bit out of hand, and we were wondering if you might be able to help us out." Ryan started to respond, but I placed my hand on his arm and stood up myself. "How much is the bill, Jessica?" She hesitated for a moment, clearly not expecting me to be the one asking questions. "Well, it is. It is $22,000. The number hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. I could see other diners at nearby tables turning to look at us, drawn by the obvious tension. Ryan's mouth fell open, and even David and Linda looked stunned from their positions at the family table. $22,000. I repeated slowly, savoring each word. "For one dinner." Jessica's confidence was cracking now. The sommelier recommended some very exclusive vintages, and you know how these things can add up. Family celebrations are important, and sometimes you have to invest in creating memories. I picked up my bourbon glass and took a slow, deliberate sip. "Memories," I said thoughtfully. "Yes, this will definitely be a memorable evening." Marcus stepped forward, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Look, Chelsea, I know this is awkward. I had no idea Jessica was ordering so extensively. We will figure something out. Maybe we can put it on a payment plan or something." I looked around the table at all the faces staring at me. Jessica's parents, who had been so cold all evening. David and Linda, who looked embarrassed by the whole situation. Jessica's friends, who were watching like this, was entertainment. And Jessica herself, who was clearly calculating whether she could somehow manipulate this situation to her advantage. "You know what?" I said, setting down my glass and reaching for my purse. "I will handle this." The silence that followed my announcement was deafening. Jessica actually laughed a sharp sound that carried no humor. "Chelsea, that is very sweet of you to offer, but this is not exactly a McDonald's bill. This is $22,000. I smiled at her as I pulled out my wallet. "I understand exactly how much it is, Jessica." What happened next was the moment I had been waiting for all evening. I pulled out my American Express Centurion card, the black card that required invitation only and had no preset spending limit. The look on Jessica's face when she saw it was worth every moment of humiliation I had endured. "How do you—" she started to ask, but her voice trailed off as the implications began to sink in. I handed the card to our waiter, who had been watching this entire exchange with professional discretion. "Please add a 25% tip for the staff's patience this evening," I told him. As he walked away to process the payment, I turned back to the stunned faces around me. "You seem surprised," I said to Jessica. "Did you think I could not afford it?" Marcus found his voice first. "Chelsea, we cannot let you pay for this. This is way too much money." "It is fine, Marcus. Really." I looked directly at Jessica as I continued. "You see, I got some news this week that I have been waiting to share. I was promoted to Vice President of Marketing for Frontier Technologies. It comes with a substantial salary increase and a signing bonus that makes tonight's dinner feel like pocket change. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Jessica's mouth was opening and closing like she was trying to form words, but nothing was coming out. The power dynamic that she had so carefully constructed throughout the evening had just been completely obliterated, and she was struggling to process what had happened. Ryan reached for my hand under the table, and I could feel his pride radiating through his touch. He squeezed my fingers gently, a silent communication that said he was sorry for not standing up for me sooner, and that he was amazed by how I had handled this situation. Our waiter returned with the credit card slip for me to sign. I added the tip I had promised, bringing the total to over $27,000, and signed with a flourish. The transaction went through without any issues, confirming what I had suspected about my new credit limit. As I handed the receipt back to the waiter, I stood up and addressed the table. "Family dinners should bring people together, not tear them apart," I said calmly. Tonight was supposed to be about celebrating Marcus's achievement, and I hope that despite the seating arrangements, we were able to do that. Jessica finally found her voice. "Chelsea, wait. I think there has been some kind of misunderstanding about tonight. The seating was just—" I held up a hand to stop her. "No misunderstanding, Jessica. I understand perfectly. You wanted to make it clear where Ryan and I stand in this family hierarchy. Mission accomplished." I turned to Marcus and gave him a genuine smile. "Congratulations on your promotion. You have worked incredibly hard for this, and I am truly happy for your success." David and Linda stood up as Ryan and I prepared to leave. "Thank you, Chelsea," Linda said quietly, "for everything. This was very generous of you, and completely unnecessary." David added, shooting a pointed look at Jessica. "This whole evening got out of hand, and that is not your fault." Ryan and I walked toward the exit, and I could feel every eye in the restaurant following us. The hostess who had seated us earlier smiled warmly as we passed her station. "Have a wonderful evening," she said, and something in her tone suggested she had been watching our drama unfold. As we waited for the valet to bring our car, Ryan turned to me with an expression I had never seen before. "I am so sorry, Chelsea. I should have said something when she pulled that seating stunt. I should have defended you." I leaned into his shoulder, feeling genuinely calm for the first time all evening. "You were trying to keep peace for your brother. I understand that, but sometimes peace comes at too high a price. When did you find out about the promotion?" "Monday morning. I have been waiting for the right time to tell you. And honestly, I wanted to save the announcement for a special occasion." This was not exactly what I had in mind, but it certainly was memorable. Our car arrived, and as we drove home through the Denver streets, my phone began buzzing with text messages. First from Linda, then from Marcus, and even one from Patricia, Jessica's mother. Each message was some variation of an apology or a thank you, acknowledging that the evening had gone badly wrong and expressing gratitude for how I had handled it. Ryan reached over and took my hand as we stopped at a red light. "I have never been prouder to be married to you than I am right now," he said. "The way you handled that whole situation with such grace and dignity, I would have lost my temper and made everything worse." I squeezed his hand back. I wanted to lose my temper too, but I realized that the best response to someone trying to humiliate you is to maintain your own standards, not sink to theirs. Over the following weeks, the ripple effects of that dinner continued to unfold in ways I had not expected. Marcus called Ryan the next day to apologize and to ask if he could pay us back for the dinner. When Ryan explained that it was genuinely not a financial burden for us, Marcus seemed even more embarrassed by Jessica's behavior. Jessica herself sent me a carefully worded text message 3 days later. It was not exactly an apology, but rather an attempt to reframe the evening as a misunderstanding. She suggested that we get together for lunch to clear the air and start fresh. I politely declined, explaining that while I held no grudges, I thought it was best if we maintained some distance going forward. The most surprising response came from Jessica's mother, Patricia. She called me directly, which had never happened before in the 2 years I had known her. She wanted to thank me for paying the bill and to apologize for her daughter's behavior. I raised Jessica with every advantage, she said, but I failed to teach her basic respect for others. What she did to you was inexcusable. Ryan's parents, David and Linda, made a point of inviting us to dinner at their house the following weekend. It was just the 4 of us, and the conversation was warm and natural in a way that family dinners should be. Linda told me how proud they were of my promotion, and David shared stories about his own career challenges when he was my age. At work, my promotion became official the following Monday. My new office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rocky Mountains, and my assistant helped me move into the space that reflected my new status in the company. The signing bonus that had made the dinner payment possible was just the beginning of the financial security that this position would provide. But the most important change was in my relationship with Ryan. The evening had forced us to have conversations about family dynamics and boundaries that we probably should have had years earlier. He began to understand that his desire to keep peace often came at the expense of my dignity, and I learned to communicate my needs more clearly instead of just enduring uncomfortable situations. We decided together that future family gatherings would include clear expectations about how I would be treated. If those expectations were not met, we would simply leave. No drama, no confrontation, just a quiet departure that spoke louder than any argument could. Ryan also started standing up to Jessica in ways he had never done before. When she made one of her passive-aggressive comments during a phone conversation, he would call it out directly. "That was inappropriate, Jessica, and I need you to apologize to Chelsea." It was a small thing, but it represented a fundamental shift in how he prioritized our marriage over family politics. Looking back on that evening now, I realize it was a turning point in how I understood my own worth. For too long, I had been trying to earn acceptance from people who had already decided I was not worthy of it. The moment I stopped seeking their approval and started demanding basic respect was the moment everything changed. I learned that kindness does not mean accepting disrespect. Grace does not require tolerating humiliation. And sometimes the most powerful response to someone trying to diminish you is to simply demonstrate your own strength without apology or explanation. The $22,000 dinner bill was expensive, but the lesson it taught me about standing up for myself was priceless. I discovered that I had more courage than I realized, more resources than people assumed, and more allies than I had noticed. Most importantly, I learned that true family is not about blood relations or social hierarchies. It is about the people who stand by you, respect you, and celebrate your successes without trying to diminish them. Ryan and I built stronger boundaries around our marriage, and his parents became even more supportive once they saw how their silence had enabled Jessica's behavior. As for Jessica, she and I maintain a polite but distant relationship now. We attend the same family functions occasionally, but the dynamic is completely different. She no longer tries to exclude me or make cutting comments, perhaps, because she realized that I am not someone who can be easily intimidated or dismissed. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a family situation that felt impossible to navigate? How did you find the courage to set boundaries with people who were supposed to love and support you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please hit that like button if this story resonated with you. And do not forget to subscribe for more real-life experiences about family dynamics, workplace challenges, and finding your own strength. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve respect regardless of their background or bank account. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you have more power than you realize to change how people treat you. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to stop asking for permission to be valued and start demanding the respect you deserve.